A viewer messaged me a few weeks ago with a challenge I'd never thought about before. He said the name Jesus is wrong, that it's a corruption, maybe even pagan, and that if we're serious about honoring God, we have to go back to the original Hebrew, Yeshua. And here's the part that made me stop cold. He pointed to Acts 4:12. There is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. If that verse is true, and I believe it is, then the name matters a lot. So if we've been using the wrong name for 2,000 years, what does that mean for everyone who called on it? I couldn't just dismiss the question, so I didn't. I traced the name from its Hebrew origin, through Greek manuscripts, through Latin, into English. I examined how the apostles themselves used it, and I studied what Scripture actually means when it says the name. What I found didn't just answer the question, it reframed it completely. Let's start at the beginning, because this is where most people either check out or get derailed. The name has a Hebrew origin. Most scholars agree on this. The original form is Yehoshua, or in its shortened version, Yeshua, and it has a meaning baked right into it. Yahweh saves. That's not a neutral detail, that's a theological statement encoded in a name. So far, so good. But here's where the trail gets interesting. The New Testament wasn't written in Hebrew. It was written in Greek. And in Greek, that name becomes, I'm totally going to mispronounce this, Eusus, spelled with an iota, an eta, a sigma. Now, is that a corruption or is that just a translation? I want to sit here for a second because this is where a lot of people make their mistake. They see the difference in spelling and assume something went wrong. But let me show you why that reaction is actually backwards. Greek doesn't have a Y sound, so y becomes I. Greek also doesn't have a sh sound, so shu becomes s. And Greek masculine names almost universally take an us ending. That's just how the language works. So what looks like a corruption is actually something entirely normal. A name moving from one language system into another. This happens with names all the time. James isn't a corruption of Jacob. It's the English form of a Hebrew name that traveled through Greek and Latin. John is the English form of Yohanan. Nobody thinks John the Baptist was dishonored because we don't call him Yohanan. The name follows the exact same path. Yeshua, Eusus, Isus, Jesus. That chain is legitimate. But here's the part I wasn't ready for, because once I accepted the linguistic argument, a bigger question surfaced. Did the apostles know they were using a translated name? Yes. Obviously, yes. Matthew was Jewish. John was Jewish. Paul, Saul of Tarsus, was a trained Pharisee who knew Hebrew scripture cold. These men knew the original name, and every single one of them wrote in Greek and used Eusus without a single recorded correction, caveat, or apology. Think about what that means. If using the Hebrew pronunciation were required, if salvation were somehow tied to hitting the right syllables, the apostles failed to preserve it. Paul, who called himself a Hebrew of Hebrews, who memorized the Torah, who knew exactly what the original name sounded like, used the Greek form every time. That's not a negligent oversight. That's a deliberate choice made by men who knew better and chose otherwise. But here's where I got stuck for a minute because there's a louder claim out there than the linguistic one. Some people don't just say the Greek form lost something in translation. They say Jesus is actively pagan, specifically that it derives from the name Zeus. I trace this one too, because if it's true, it changes everything. It's not true. The Greek name Zeus is spelled Dios in the genitive. It doesn't share a root, a stem, or a linguistic pathway with Jesus. There's no manuscript evidence, no etymological evidence, and no historical evidence that the early Greek-speaking Christians saw any connection between the two. This claim shows up online and gets passed around, but it doesn't survive contact with the actual Greek linguistics. The form of the name is entirely explained by normal Greek phonology. Nothing more. Now, here's the question I kept circling back to. The one in Acts 4:12 forces us to answer. What does Scripture mean by the name? Because if it means the correct phonetic sequence, then we have a massive problem. Not just because of the translation chain, but because the Greek-speaking churches were already using Jesus while the Jerusalem church still had living apostles who could have corrected them. They didn't. But if the name means something else, something deeper, then the whole debate shifts. So I started tracing how Scripture uses the name as a concept. And this is where it clicked. In the Hebrew and Greek worldview, a name doesn't primarily refer to a sound. It refers to a person, their character, their authority, their identity, their reputation. When Moses asked God his name at the burning bush, he's not asking for a pronunciation guide. He's asking, who are you? What is your nature? By what authority do you act? When the Psalms say to praise the name of the Lord, they don't mean repeat a syllable. They mean honor who he is. This pattern runs all the way through Scripture. To call on the name is to direct your trust toward a person. To act in the name of someone is to act with their authority and on their behalf. To be saved in the name of Christ is to be saved through him, his identity, his work, his authority. Acts 4:12 isn't making a phonetic claim. Peter is standing before the Sanhedrin telling them that the man they crucified, this specific person, Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, is the only one through whom salvation comes. Not Zeus, not Caesar, not the emperor. This person. The name is the person. And here's what that means for our question. You can't separate salvation from Christ by changing which language you speak. The disciples didn't require Greek converts to learn Hebrew before they could believe. They went into Greek-speaking cities, used Greek manuscripts, proclaimed Jesus, and people came to faith. The early church spread across the Roman world using a translated name, and no apostle came behind them to fix it. That's significant. Really significant. Because if the apostles themselves, eyewitnesses, Hebrew scholars, men who walked with Jesus didn't require the Hebrew form, what grounds do we have to require it today? Let me pull the thread together. We trace the name from Hebrew through Greek, through Latin, into English. We watched the apostles freely use the translated form. We examined how Scripture defines the name, not as a phonetic sequence, but as a person and his authority. And here's what it changes. The argument that Jesus is corrupt assumes the name's power is in its sound. But the New Testament doesn't teach that. It teaches that the power is in the person the name represents. And Jesus, and Yeshua all represent the same person, the Son of Mary, born in Bethlehem, who lived, died, and rose under Pontius Pilate. The meaning of the name Yahweh saves is still fully intact. The person the name points to hasn't changed. The work that person accomplished hasn't changed. This isn't a new meaning assigned by translation. It's the original meaning carried faithfully across languages the same way the gospel itself was carried across languages. The method of preservation actually tells us something about God's character, that he wasn't protecting a sound, he was protecting a message, a person, a rescue. And the fact that this preservation happened through normal human processes, linguistic development, translation, manuscript transmission, rather than miraculous phonetic lockdown, that's consistent with how God works through Scripture. He works through real history, real languages, real people. So obviously I don't feel the same pull that I did before. Not because I dismissed it. I actually went and looked. I checked the linguistics. I followed the manuscript trail. I examined what the apostles actually did. And what I found is that the people making the argument have accidentally invented the issue. They're treating salvation like a combination lock. Get the syllables right and the door opens. But that's not the biblical picture. Salvation isn't tied to phonetics. It's tied to a person and to trusting him. The real question was never, are you saying the name correctly? The real question is, do you know who you're calling on? And are you trusting him? I'm still digging into the related questions around this, particularly how the early church handled the diversity of languages in worship and what the book of Acts actually shows us about cross-cultural proclamation. If that's a thread you want to follow, let me know in the comments. I'm curious what you've noticed in your own reading. And if this raised a question I didn't answer, or if you found something in the text that complicates the picture, I genuinely want to hear it. That's what this is for.